Hi everyone, I'm Randy Arrington and welcome to episode 68 of Valley Livin. We're here today on the Caudill Farm, which sits just outside of Stanley, Virginia, with Ben Caudill, a senior at Luray High School, who recently made an appearance on national television. He was a guest on the Making Money with Charles Payne show on Fox Business News, and the episode aired back on Thursday, April the 24th. It was a special episode focusing on a book that Payne had released called Unbreakable Investor, and it was a town hall meeting looking at the next generation of investors. The book subtitled The Importance of Being Financially Literate. That is something that Ben Caudill can tell us a little bit about, and he learned about, and as we said, commented on Fox Business News just a few weeks ago. We're going to look at that clip in a little bit. We're going to talk to Ben about his trip to New York and about what it's like to be on national television in just a moment. All of that and more right here on episode 68. We'll be back in just a few moments after a word from our sponsor. At Luray Caverns, you can hear music of symphonic quality from ancient stone formations on the great stalacpipe organ, the largest musical instrument in the world. Only at Luray Caverns. Visit them online at luraycaverns.com to plan your trip today. Welcome back, everyone. Right here at the Caudill Farm just outside of Stanley, Virginia, where we're talking with Ben Caudill right here on episode 68 of Valley Livin, which is being recorded on Tuesday, May the 6th, and will be airing on Wednesday, May the 7th. Ben, thank you so much for being with us here today, buddy.
Pleasure.
Appreciate you being here. You have had some big going-ons here lately. You made a trip up to the Big Apple recently. I want to hear about, now, when was this, in April?
This was about a week ago exact.
Okay. And what all did you get to see in the Big Apple?
Ran Central Park, saw Times Square, went to a musical with a good friend of mine.
Oh, very cool. So you got to do several things. What musical did you see?
Great Gatsby. It was pretty good.
Great Gatsby, right there on Broadway? Whoa, man. A lot of people can not say that they have seen a production on Broadway, so that is very cool. Now, obviously, you were invited up to New York by Fox Business News to appear on the show Making Money with Charles Payne. And they had a special episode that aired, as we said, on Thursday, April 24th, and it was a town hall, and it featured on the book by Payne called Unbreakable Investor, The Importance of Being Financially Literate. And you were on a segment of VIPs, is what he called you guys. And we're going to take a look at that clip in just a few minutes. But I want to talk more about your trip to New York and the things that you saw. So tell us first how it came about that you became a guest on the show.
Yeah, so I'd been working for this, one lady. She wants to remain anonymous, but I've known her my whole life, right? And I help her out, help with her property, stuff like that. And she had signed up for this class, and they had a bonus called the partner program, right?
Okay.
So I signed up, or she signed up for it, and she invited me as her plus one. And
Okay.
I'd been, learning the stock market, Payne's education, and they had this application for town hall, the next generation. So I filled it out and was accepted.
And it was based on the fact of your involvement and getting involved and learning about the stock market and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And this was an online course. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and maybe some things you learned from that. Maybe you give me a few investment tips along the way, and maybe I can make a few dollars off this. But let's talk a little bit more about being on the set of a national show. Were you nervous?
No, not really.
You didn't appear to be.
Yeah, I don't really get nervous.
Well, was there a lot of prep? Did you go to a green room, beforehand with hors d'oeuvres and things like that? Or did you have a hairstylist or a makeup person?
So, first it started, we got to the hotel and we were, independent for a bit, me and, because they let you bring a plus one, a guest. And I had brought, the woman who allowed me to do all of this.
Yeah.
We got there, we got set up, and then we went for a little, dinner where we met all the, the three other guests, and it was managed by a really nice guy called Tim, He's a part of a group called Paradigm Entertainment or Paradigm something.
Okay.
And he's what manages us for Charles Payne.
Okay.
So we got together and we practiced our elevator pitches at dinner. What we were going to say, what our story was, and we got to know each other. It was more a familiar experience, right?
Okay.
Like these guys,
Yeah.
really, really nice, down to earth
Yeah.
guys. Self-made people. They had their businesses, family. Mother, father.
Did Fox Business pick up the dinner tab?
Yeah,
I hope so.
It was pretty incredible.
What'd you have to eat?
That night, steak, and I think the next night, because I'd never been to such a high-class establishment. I told them up front, and they kind of they ordered stuff for me to try.
Yeah.
That I had never tried before. It was pretty amazing. Oysters.
Oh wow.
Surf and turf.
Okay, very nice, very, very nice. Now, once you were on the show, I noticed it's an hour-long show, if I recall correctly, and your segment is several minutes there with the other three. Were you all in the audience for the other part of the show, or were you backstage, or where were you?
So we got there before the audience, and when they were actually setting up, it's pretty interesting how they do the sets. So the set that we were on was the same one where Gutfield was on. I'm not sure if if you watch Fox, there's a guy named Gutfield.
Yeah.
And they have these awesome moving displays, right? It's a bunch of specialized design computer monitors,
right,
about the same size that you have on your desk.
Okay.
And they just have them in panels and they just move them around. We got there, we went to the green room, got prepped, ate some food, got makeup done, and then we went out when our segment was there.
What kind of food? I'm always asking about food, but what kind of food did they have in the green room?
Snacks, figs, expensive airline food.
Okay.
They had a water machine that had, a digital display. That was pretty interesting to see.
Now, when you were sitting back in the green room, were you able to watch on a monitor the rest of the show as it was going on until your segment came up?
Yeah. They had the, basically what was airing, as
Right.
it went out. But you could also go out and you could watch from the rafters. Basically, the audience, you can't see us because
Wow.
we're in the dark. But
Okay.
when our segment was over, we went out and watched the rest from the peanut gallery.
And is it like in all the TV shows or movies that somebody with a headset come in and go, 2 minutes to air?
Oh my God, yeah. There was specifically one guy called Nick. Awesome guy. He, really nice, really kind, and he was ushering us along. But most of the people who were in the peanut gallery were either the crew who was running it or the Fox executives.
Wow. So having been behind the set and behind the scenes of a national show on a, really international cable channel, any takeaways? Was there something you thought was weird or different than you thought it might be, or any thoughts or memories that you took away from that?
It was pretty bustling. So some of the people were a little, passive aggressive, as you'd kind of expect from, a city environment. But people were pretty nice.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, when we come back, we're going to show you the clip of where Ben tells them what it's all about on Fox Business News. That, as we said, it aired on April the 24th. We're going to show you that. We're going to talk more about the program that he was in that got him on the show. We'll be back in just a moment after another word from our sponsor. At Luray Caverns, from well-lighted paved walkways, explore cathedral-sized rooms with ceilings 10 stories high, and walk among huge chambers filled with towering stone columns. Come visit Geology's Hall of Fame, only at Luray Caverns. Visit them online at luraycaverns.com to plan your trip today. Welcome back, everybody. Randy Arrington here with Ben Caudill, just outside of Stanley, Virginia, on the Caudill family farm, to talk to Ben about his amazing trip to New York City and his appearance on Making Money with Charles Payne on the Fox Business News channel. And Ben, we're going to take a look here in a moment about this clip. Is there anything you want to say about it before we air the clip of what you said on the show?
I thought I was pretty concise. I loved it. I was focused in on it. I wish I smiled more. I didn't realize in the moment, how deadpan I was.
Oh, well, you didn't notice it till the very end. They kind of stuck the camera right on your face and just kind of held it there. But hey, like the guy said, well, we'll see what he says in a minute. I don't want to give it away. Let's take a look at that clip right now.
The biggest winners this week are all companies that have been around for 100 years, right? Boeing and GE and Chevron. They're going to be around for another 100 years. Don't be afraid. You're not going to outlive these investments, I can tell you already. Ben, you're the youngest and you want to outlive them. Tell us your story.
Yeah. So, from rural place, rural Virginia, was inspired by, local stone carver, helped her out. She helped me out, and she got me in, with the Payne's Education Partner Program. I never thought the stock market, could be a venture for me, right? I didn't have the education for it, didn't have the background, didn't have the place, but, now it's an outlet, hoping to, help fuel my community, help them out, show, kids that there's more than, just an, $8.25 job at Walmart.
Man, that's a lot of wisdom for an 18-year-old. Right? You're 18 years old? God bless you, man. All right. Folks, our VIPs, Amy, Ben, Adam, thank you very much. Really appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, Ben, I would say maybe a little stoic there at the end, but, we could always smile a little more. But just like the gentleman said, the host, Charles Payne, very forward-thinking and a lot of wisdom there for 18 years old. Let's talk about right now the program that you were in. You were in Payne's Education Program, which I believe is an online program. Tell us a little bit about that, how you found out about it, and how long you did it, and a little bit about what you learned.
So Payne's Education, it's like any online, course, right? You pay for it. They have video classes. They have, live actual people who, are very experienced, who hold live Q&As, live classes, workshops. But, the majority of the lessons are, video classes with, documentation and annotated notes, and, you go through that. I got involved with it through, the aforementioned woman, who I helped out. And, she wanted to get back in the stock market. She used to be, a shark back in the 90s, and, she wanted to try it out again. She signed up for the class. I joined up with her, and I've been studying ever since.
Recently, with the fluctuation of the stock market, with the tariffs that have kind of been on again, off again, and the stock market jumping up and down, when it hit really low, when it crashed, is that a good time to buy?
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen and, what I've learned is that, the stock market will always come back as long as there's a nation and as long as there's an economy and want for it to come back. So, it's the iconic phrase, buy low, sell high.
Exactly. I agree 100%. If only I had that magic crystal ball that would tell me a few days ahead of time before when it was going to make these dramatic hikes and drops.
Maybe you can ask to borrow Warren Buffett's.
Yeah, right. Well, he's retiring now. He just announced his retirement, stepping down from Berkshire Hathaway. So
you got a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about you had some interest in the stock market before. Tell me, between being involved in Payne's Education, your confidence level and understanding of it before versus after. Do you feel like now you know a little bit about what's going on?
Yeah, so, before I had an interest in it, but I just didn't have the education to make it, a viable life path for me, right? And, before I, just always kind of saw that, you would just predict it, but, now that I'm learning there are actual patterns that you can use to, predict it, predict human behavior, a bunch of patterns, a bunch of shows that you can read beforehand to predict, when it's going to shoot up, when it's going to go down. I'm learning terminology, in the beginning section, like in the tools, in like the tool section and additional assets, they have like a little packet with, just filled with terminology that, I've just been, looking over and reading in my free time just to memorize the information.
If you had to give a capsule of just one piece of advice or one tip or one thing that you feel like has been the most valuable that you've pulled from that course, what would it be?
Be strategic, be careful. A lot of people get caught up in it, a lot of people get greedy, and that's how you lose. Human brains are hardwired to we're more affected by losing than we are winning. And you just got to calm yourself. Charles Payne, he preaches, 3 pillars: fundamentals, technicals, and emotional, right? And that's how you read how well a stock is doing. Fundamentals being the core aspects of whatever company it is, what they make, what they do. Technical being the, how the stocks are turning out, right? Noticing those patterns, noticing those trends. And emotional being, the vibe of it.
Yeah.
Right? How people are reacting to it, how, people are treating it, if people are all right with it morally, if people, are protesting it, if there's controversy.
Well, I'll tell you, you were exactly right in the statement you made a moment ago about remembering your losses. As an amateur gambler and amateur investor, I by far remember my losses probably more than my wins. You talked a little bit on the clip there in the video about helping the community, and hey, buddy, we got a new cameo here in the interview. You talked about helping the community, and I know one of the things that you do in the community is you volunteer at the rec working with youth. Tell me a little bit about what you do there.
Yeah, so, I signed up, early high school, just because, I wanted something to do, wanted something fun, and, I just help Pastor Audrey King out where I can, right? I'll show up, I'm on speed dial. If people need something repaired, if people need some, asset or something that I can give, they call on me.
Well, I tell you, it is a great organization, and I think it's great that you're helping out there and doing that. You think investing, now that you've kind of got into it, is going to be a lifelong thing?
I hope so. I mean, you can make money, anywhere as long as you have an internet connection. In this day and age, it's kind of hard to imagine someone who doesn't, in America at least. Well, not that hard. But, you can make a lot of money if you're strategic about it, if you know what to do, if you have the education, and, that's what I kind of want to bring back here.
Well, you had said you wanted to share the idea with others in the community, particularly maybe your peers or even younger, that there's some possibilities and things out there. So what would you say if someone, let's say they're getting out of high school very soon in a few weeks, just like you, getting ready to go into that workforce, maybe draw their first paycheck, and what would your advice to them be?
As far as stock investing, get an education and actually learn. You can jump in if you want to, but it's best if you have at least some knowledge, some background of it, whether it's formal or, you just binge YouTube videos or something like that. But the most important thing, at least for me when I was starting out, and, is a trend where, your early 20s when you're first starting out, the most important thing to do is connections, right? You don't have the skills yet and you don't have the experience yet to make yourself valuable, at least for most people. So, make friends, understand, who to talk to, who to make friends with, and they'll lead you, different pathways, just like, with the woman who, got me to where I am now.
Well, there you go, folks. The next Warren Buffett of the Page Valley right here, Ben Caudill. Ben, thanks so much for being with us, man. What a great experience, and thank you for sharing it with us today. That's it today, folks, for episode 68 of Page Valley Livin'. We want to remind you to hit that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Page Valley Livin', or Page Valley News, rather. You can look that up and do the search on YouTube, and it'll bring up our YouTube channel. And make sure you share the video with a friend. As always, we want to thank Eleanor Arrington for all of her work behind the camera and in the editing room this week. And as always, we want to encourage you to go down to the Page County Animal Shelter and help all of our furry friends find a forever home. Until next week, I'm Randy Arrington for Ben Caudill saying enjoy that Page Valley living.